Using OEB law when you have an accident is easier than a hockey player using a microwave, transferring a call, going to the dentist.
The money you need, get the money you want. OEB law.
Hey guys, it's me again, DJ Pendergrass here at OEB Law. We're excited because we have a lot of questions that we want to ask the lawyers. We want to know some information. And I have Gena Lewis joining us today. Hey, Gena, how you doing?
Hey, DJ, I am doing great. How about you?
I'm great. This is one of the interviews I've been waiting on. I couldn't wait to get you on. So I'm so glad to have you here. You're always busy. You're running. You're always taking care of business. So, but we'll go ahead and get it kicked off. And first question.
Yes.
The lawyer behind the desk. That's going to be the theme of the first few questions I have for you. So what inspires you to pursue a career in law?
Well, I've always cared about serving people. I've cared about my community. I care about justice, particularly for criminal defense. You know, what I believe is that first of all, everybody's entitled to a fair trial. Everybody is entitled to have the assistance of counsel. But beyond that, you know, I feel very strongly that, you know, no matter what somebody's done or not done, you know, that everybody is entitled to redemption. Everybody is entitled to forgiveness. So, you know, if you get an innocent person who has been falsely accused of a crime, then I want to vindicate that person. But at the same time, you know, even if somebody has been, you know, rightfully accused, you know, I still want to stand up for that person and for the principle that we're all human beings. We all have it coming to us in one way or the other, but, you know, we're all entitled to forgiveness and we're all capable of being redeemed. So
what's the most rewarding part of being a lawyer?
Well, I think the most rewarding part of being a lawyer is helping people, making a difference in people's lives. And I think that criminal defense is a practice area where you really get to do that. You know, there are people who are able today to walk the streets of our city because, you know, as free people. And that's because they won their litigation. And some of those people were looking at spending the majority of the rest of their lives in prison. So I think, you know, being able to look at that person and say, you know, I was responsible for getting them a second chance. Not solely responsible, obviously, because in order to pull something like that off, you have to have a great team. And if you don't have a great team, you're probably not going to be successful. But the other thing that, you know, makes me proud is, you know, beyond the people whose litigation we've won, is the people that we've helped to turn their lives around. You know, if they had an addiction problem, if they had something in their life which put them in that situation, you know, you see people, particularly in criminal defense, who really do come back for whatever that situation was. And that makes you feel very good to have been a part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to give you one more question about the lawyer behind the desk, and that's, can you share a memorable case or an experience that you had that had a big impact on you?
Well, I think, you know, there have been a lot of those. I would say that most recently was a first degree murder case that was one of the first cases that I took when I joined the firm back in 2022. There was a young man who hired us, you know, wasn't satisfied, I guess. You know, not necessarily because of anything that lawyer did. Sometimes you just don't get along with your attorney, but hired us 2.5 weeks before the trial. I thought the judge would give us a continuance. He did not. We offered the young man his full retainer back so that he could go back to his previous attorney if he wanted to do that, and he elected to stay with us. And so we took that. We prepared the case. Obviously, first degree murder, that's the kind of the most serious case that you can have as a criminal defense attorney. That's 60 years at 100%. So if we had lost that, it would have been really bad. We pulled together as a team. It was kind of all hands on deck. We got the case ready and we won it. So, so I think that was a case that, first of all, I thought that was a very deserving client who did not deserve to be in that situation. So it felt good to save that person's life, essentially. But I also think it demonstrated to me what a great firm this is and what a great team that we have. Because I certainly could not have done that on my own. I couldn't have done it without the, talent and expertise of multiple people in the firm who pulled together. And I think it shows how well we work together. And I also think it shows that the dedication that when we take a case, it's all hands on deck, and we will do whatever it takes within the law and the ethics rules to win your litigation. So, and win, lose, or draw, we'll take the fight to them.
Nice,
So I
nice.
really think that, that showed, who we are as a law firm. And it made me very proud to be a part of this firm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to go on to my next theme here, Gena. I want to go talk about legal myths and reality. Okay.
All right.
I want to talk about some legal myths and reality. First question I have for you is, what's a common misconception people have about the legal system?
Well, I think one common misconception that people have about the legal system, I think there are a couple, and that they're kind of opposites. One common misconception I think people have about the legal system is that it's going to be over very quickly. That the justice system is kind of like an ATM, and you put your money in and you receive the justice that you deserve. Um, and it oftentimes, it's not like that. Even for a relatively simple case, for reasons that have to do with the system itself, it can drag on for a while. The second thing I think that a lot of people who get involved in the system have is that, well, that it's unfair, it's biased, it's all against me. So it's kind of the opposite, and that's not true either. I mean, the justice system obviously has its own rules. It has its own systems of the way that things are done. And that can be very confusing and very intimidating to people. And I think that both of those misconceptions, are a part of the fact that, this is a very unfamiliar world to most people. And it can be very intimidating to be a litigant. And so I think that one responsibility of an attorney is to help people understand the system and to help guide them through it.
So what legal myths do you want to debunk?
I think those two, honestly. I think the reason that I would want to debunk them is that, if your case is taking a long time, that doesn't mean that, things aren't getting done. That's just kind of how the system works. But also that, I do think, especially in this county, that we're fortunate to have very good judges. I think we're fortunate to have a very good bar, meaning other lawyers who practice in this county. And so I think that people being able to in effect, I guess, de-stress or come to understand the system a little bit better. I think regardless, I mean, in most cases, there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser,
Right.
in terms of the litigation itself. I think if you come into it and you think, well, that was very unfair, and everything was rigged against me, and you're on the losing side. I mean, you're probably not going to feel that way if you wind up winning, but if you're on the losing side and you feel that way, well, that's just going to make the experience worse. And if during the process, if you think, well, it shouldn't be taking this long, I'm in the right, and this should all have been resolved within 24 hours or whatever, then you're going to be very frustrated. And so I think that people understanding that things may go your way and things may not go your way, that doesn't mean that the system victimized you or that it was unfair. And that is that it is a process. It's kind of like, you know, being a litigant in a serious case, like a criminal defense case or a divorce or something like that that's contested. It's kind of like having a serious medical condition. I think people who go to the doctor and that they've got cancer or heart disease or something like that, they don't come in a lot of the times with the expectation, oh well, my cancer is going to be cured next week. Why am I not healed already? Um, and I think that that in some ways, that helps people through that process. So I think one thing that I would like for people to kind of realize about the system and myth to be debunked is that it's probably going to take a long time if it's a serious case. Um, and you may or may not get the outcome that you want, but that doesn't mean that that the system was unfair or treated you unfairly.
Gotcha, gotcha. All that's great information, Gina. You're the best. But
Thank
I
you.
do want to keep moving on. I have several more questions to ask, and I know you're busy, but I
Sure.
want to keep this rolling on. What are some top legal tips everyone should know? So the question I'm going to ask, that is the theme. The question I'm going to ask is, what is one piece of legal advice everyone should keep in mind?
Well, I think for a criminal defense attorney, and I think if you ask any experienced criminal defense attorney this, the number one piece of legal advice would be do not talk to the police without an attorney. If you get arrested or if the police call you and they want to talk to you, don't say word one to them without having an attorney present. There are countless people sitting in jail because they thought they could go down to the police station and handle that themselves, and that is almost always 100% the absolute worst thing you could do if you're in that situation.
Oh, great. Wow. Somebody, I hope you guys out there listening because that's some valuable information you need to know. So, what's something people often overlook when dealing with legal issues?
Well, I think there are many things that people overlook when dealing with legal issues. Um, I think one thing that people need to do, depending, regardless of what type of case it is, the system deals in what's called evidence, which is facts. And so if there's important evidence out there that supports your case, then you need to make sure that you preserve that. Yeah, that could be that you're involved in a car accident. Well, you want to photograph your car. You want to photograph the damage. You want to photograph the other person's car. You want to photograph your injuries. In a divorce, you want to make sure you have financial records. If it's if you have some money and some assets. Um, in a criminal case, if you recorded what you're being accused of on video, I mean, assuming that video is going to help you, obviously, you need that video. So let's say somebody says, well, that you threatened them or you hit them or you did something like that, and you've got all that on video. Well, it doesn't do you any good if you lose the video. So any evidence that is favorable to you, you want to make sure that you keep that and you have it in a safe location. I had a picture of this, or I had a video of this, or I had this email, or I had this voicemail. If you don't preserve it, then it's not going to do you any good. So I think that's the number one thing, is to make sure, that all of the evidence that you might need for your case, that you make sure that it's in a safe place and you've got that preserved, because if you lose it, it's gone.
How can someone prepare for a consultation with a lawyer?
Well, I think you want to research the lawyer. I think you want to look at what they've done, their track record. I think you want to have questions that you want to ask them. I think that you want to kind of avoid people who are going to oversell the case. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not a good attorney, but somebody who tells you that they can get you probation on your first degree murder case. Well, that could be true, and that could be the ultimate result of the case. But something like that, is not likely to end up um, being settled for a probationary sentence. So, somebody who's up front with you and tells you, well, hey, this is, kind of what your situation is. This is what you're looking at. I would like to help you, but who doesn't try to sell you the case like they're selling you a used car. Um, I think that that's something that you should look at in an attorney. You should look at somebody that you feel you have a good rapport with, um, to somebody that you feel will communicate with you so that you can understand your litigation and what's going on. Somebody who's willing to be available to you. Doesn't mean that you get to call them at 3 a.m. and ask them the same question you've asked them 50 times before, obviously, but there are kind of limits. We have lives too. um, but, but all of those things.
Perfect. That's perfect. Well, I still have more questions for you. You still got a little time?
Oh, sure.
Good. So now the theme is going to be a day in the life with a lawyer.
All
What does your
right.
typical work day look like?
Well, a typical work day looks like for me. So, I have a 90-pound collie who goes to daycare, of all things. I know people sometimes think that's a little bit weird. A dog goes to daycare, but so I get up usually about 5:30. I get ready. You have to look presentable and nice. So I take my dog to daycare, and usually I go to court in the morning. Either here or we take cases statewide. So there's kind of no telling where I'll be, but I'll go to court in the morning. I usually try to have lunch with a friend, and then I come back in the afternoon, and that's my time to meet with clients and to do paperwork. And then I pack up my computer and um, you know, usually I pack up my computer and go home and, well, first pick up my dog and then go home and get something to eat. And usually I'll work for a couple of hours at night and then play a video game or read a book and go to bed and do the whole thing starting in the next morning.
Nice. So how do you manage the stress of high pressure cases?
Well, I think you learn. Um, you know, I mean, there's a preacher who I like very much, and he says that he's an introvert, and I don't consider myself an introvert, but I've always been kind of afraid of public speaking, so um, that's something that as a litigator I've really had to get past. Um, I think that the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it. I don't think I would ever want to be entirely comfortable with it, just because I think number one, that gives you an edge. It gives you some energy when you're up there. Trials can be very grueling. I just finished one, and we went from, I believe, 8:30 in the morning until about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Had maybe 2 hours in there for a break, and that was it. So you're either on your feet or you're sitting at the council table, but you have to be paying attention and you have to be on. And you have to have everything organized. You have to have everything lined up, because that's what juries expect. Um, so that is a lot of pressure and it's a lot of stress. I think that if you ever get too comfortable doing that, then, to me, it would be losing your edge. So I think you want to have a little bit of pressure and a little bit of stress to give you some energy. But obviously, you don't want to be overwhelmed by that. And, um, I guess when I was a kid, I rode horses and I was terrified to jump, but I wanted to do that. And so I just kind of learned to set my fear aside. And the mental image that I would have is just putting it in a suitcase and putting that suitcase on the ground and saying it's not relevant and I'm not going to deal with it.
Right.
And that's kind of what I do with trials and any kind of contested thing as a lawyer is that I just take the stress and I take the pressure and I take everything and put it in that suitcase and mentally just set it aside and say, well, I've got a job to do. I'm going to do it.
Nice, nice. Well, we're here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We are here. We're representing Knoxville, Tennessee. Like you said, you're all over the state.
Yes.
But specifically, how does OEB law stand out from other firms in Knoxville?
Well, I think OEB Law stands out from other firms in Knoxville. Like I said, you know, I mean, I'll come back, kind of where I came at in the beginning. Um, I think, well, not I think, I know there are other lawyers who can say they've won a first degree murder case. But I don't think there are many that can say they've won a first degree murder case in under those circumstances. And so I think that one way that OEB stands out is that we have a terrific team. Um, and we have a lot of talent and we have a lot of depth, and we have very dedicated people who work here who are willing, when the heat is on and push comes to shove, to drop everything and dedicate themselves to that client. And obviously, I mean, I'm not going to say that's unique because I think we have great lawyers who practice in this town. But that's certainly something that makes me very proud to be a part of this firm, and I wouldn't want to go anywhere else.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot. So, what do you love most about serving the Knoxville community?
Well, I love my community, and like I said, I love helping people. Whether that's helping them with their litigation or, I mean, as I said, criminal defense. Like, you encounter people who are in crisis a lot of times, and they're in crisis because of addictions or things that are going on in their lives that have kind of derailed their train, if you want to put it that way. And so, being able to help people turn their lives around. That's something that's great for that individual and that client. It makes you feel very good to see that. But in the course of almost 20 years of doing this, I've seen people who have turned their lives around and have not only done that towards their own benefit, but obviously the community benefits, and who have gone on to make great contributions as members of the community. And so that makes you feel good too, that you've helped the individual, but by helping the individual, you also help to make Knoxville an even better place than it already is.
Perfect. Man, I love this. I'm not going to stop asking you questions until you tell me to stop. But I am going to lighten up the mood a little bit, okay? I'm going to hit you
All
with
right.
some rapid fire questions, okay? This is going to be fun and lighthearted.
All right.
I'm going to change the mood a bit if you don't mind. Do you drink
Sure.
coffee?
I do.
What is your favorite coffee order?
Well, it depends. I like Starbucks, so I guess my go-to would be some kind of flavored iced coffee. Or when it's cold outside, flavored hot coffee. So this morning I had a cookie dough latte from a little coffee
Ooh,
shop that's close to where I drop my dog off from daycare.
nice.
Bear Grounds in Alcoa. If
Okay,
you want to patronize them, excellent coffee and very good, nice folks who work there.
sounds good. So, what's your favorite emoji that you use?
Um, well, I do tend to get a little bit frustrated, particularly with myself. So the hand over the face is one of them. And I also like the smiley face emoji. So depending on the context of the message.
So, if you wasn't a lawyer, what would you be?
Well, actually, my career took a little bit of a detour because I started out and I wanted to be a professor of comparative literature, of all things, and spent several years going to graduate school at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, to do that. So, um,
Chapel
I'm
Hill.
sure that, yes, so I'm sure that in a parallel alternate universe, there may be a version of me who is a literature professor.
I can see that in you. I definitely can see that in you for sure. Last question on the rapid fire.
All right.
What's one thing someone may not know about you?
Um, That's a good question because I think I'm pretty open. Um, I like to bake. I'm a relatively good baker. I think maybe that's something people don't necessarily know about me. Um, Even though I have been told that my chocolate chip cookies are quite good. Um,
well,
um,
well, I don't know if you know this or not, Gena, but I've been diagnosed with a weight problem.
uh-huh.
I can't
Well,
wait to
I
eat.
would never think that.
I
I would
can't
never
wait to
think that
eat.
in a million years.
Well, I can't wait to eat, Gena. So make sure you bring me some of those cookies, okay? That's my weight problem. I can't
Absolutely.
wait to eat.
Absolutely.
That is awful. I did want to switch to give you some rapid fire and switch it up a little bit. So I am expecting you to give me some of those cookies, though, okay?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. I will bring them in.
I need that, and I will eat them
Secret
because.
secret is a teaspoon of bourbon.
Okay, perfect. We'll take that too. We'll
All
take that
right.
too. So next theme is your legal questions answered, and I only have one question in this one. Okay,
All right.
what's one question you wish people asked more often?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think one thing that I wish people would ask more often um, is just how can I live with this case? And the reason I say that is it's not necessarily a legal question, but I do care about people, and I think that people oftentimes suffer emotionally and otherwise because they have the stress of this litigation over their heads, um, and so I think that just asking how can I go on with my daily life with this hanging over my head? Sometimes just asking that question can be helpful. Um, and it could be that, a lawyer can suggest, well, look, I mean, if you're having a great deal of anxiety about this, then, I could recommend a therapist for you. But there are also things people can do, I think, to kind of work their way through that situation. So that's one question that I wish people would ask. Um, Another thing that I wish people would ask is, you know, not just what the outcome is. What do you think is going to happen? That kind of thing. People ask that all the time. I think one thing that I would like to see people ask is, you know, what could I do to improve my chances in my litigation? Um, and that's something that honestly a good attorney will talk to you about. Um, you know, how to set things up in the most positive light, how to fix some issues, things that you can do, that sort of thing. But it's not something that you hear people ask you right offhand. I think that if people ask that, um, then they would be a lot more engaged, perhaps, in actually doing those things. So, one issue that in criminal defense comes up quite a bit is people have addiction issues. Um, and most lawyers will tell the client, okay, well, you know, you're accused of stealing this, and I'm just giving you an example. Stealing something, and you did that because you were an addict. So we're going to try to work your case out, and it would be really helpful if you would go to rehab. Um, and so you get that person and send them to rehab, and that can be very helpful to them. Um, but hang on a second. I just lost the screen.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, we was at our very end anyway here. Gena, thank you so much for joining me, guys. If you need legal counsel, if you need legal advice, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, OEB Law, make sure you give us a call, 865-546-1111. That's 865-546-1111. Or you can go straight to your .com site and hit recintoacheck.com. That's recintoacheck.com. We have lawyers ready to go every single day, answer your questions, to get you the help that you need and that you deserve, compensation that you need and that you deserve. We appreciate Gena. We lost Gena, but we appreciate Gena for this. Again, guys, if you need a lawyer right now, 865-546-1111. If you don't know if you need a lawyer, you just need legal advice, 865-546-1111. Call the folks at OEB Law that have attorneys on hand ready to answer your question. And we are 24/7, so never close. Anytime that you need anything, you always can reach out. There's going to be someone that can take your call, they can take your email, that will see the .com site is ringing, that you're looking for us, and we can always 24/7, any time of the day, 365 days of the year, reach out to you and get you the legal advice and attention and know-how that you deserve. Thank you guys for joining. Go ahead and make someone aware and please share. Until next time, have a great day.
At OEB Law, our home is your home, giving back and helping out whenever needed. OEB Law is proud to be from East Tennessee. OEB Law feels like home.